let sine theta be negative root 3 over 3, and theta is in between 3 pi over 2, that's 270 degrees, and 2 pi 360. That means theta is in fourth quadrant. Okay, bigger than 270, less than 360. Now find the exact value of cosine half angle, cosine theta over 2. And we know that the formula for cosine theta over 2 is equal to plus or minus root 1 plus cosine theta over 2. Okay, now plus or minus depending on where theta over 2 lies. Okay, so in this case theta is in between 270 and 360. If we assume theta be, let's say, 300 degrees, that's inside, then half of theta over 2 will be half of 300, that's 150. So that will be in second quadrant. So cosine theta over 2 is in the second quadrant now, and we know from the quadrant rule ASTC, in the second quadrant only sine is positive, so cosine will be negative, so we'll choose the negative sign. So based on our theta that's in fourth quadrant, we can take any angle. Here I took 300, half of 300 is 150. 150 is in second quadrant, and cosine is second cosine, that's like 150, and cosine is negative in the second quadrant. So we use the formula cosine theta over 2 equals negative root 1 plus cosine theta over 2. Next, if we know the value of cosine theta, then we are basically done. But the question gives the value of sine theta. So based on this sine theta, we need to find cosine theta. There are two ways, by the way. We can go for sine square, writing sine square plus cosine square equals 1, and sine is given, and we can find the value of cosine. That's one way. But the general method would be draw the right triangle based on sine. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse, and find the unknown side. Once we have all three sides of a right triangle, then we can find any trig function including cosine theta. So let's do that work here. Sine theta is given to be negative root 3 over 3, and we know that sine is opposite over hypotenuse, and our theta is in fourth quadrant. So let's draw the right triangle. Fourth quadrant is here. Draw a right triangle, and this will be the angle theta opposite over hypotenuse. So root 3 over 3. This negative sign could be for the bottom or the top, but this is going down, so this should be negative. So negative root 3. This hypotenuse is always positive, so this is 3, and we are missing adjacent a, and we know that a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So a squared, unknown squared, plus b squared, negative root 3 squared. So what is that? Negative root 3 squared is in fact negative 1, negative squared, positive, and root 3 squared, that's root 9, which is 3, or square and square root cancel just for this part, and 3, it's just 3. So negative root 3 square is 3, is equal to c squared, 9, 3 square 9. Subtract 3 from both sides, we get a square equals 9 minus 3 6. Take square root, that's the square root of 6. So we have now all three sides. Then we can find any trig function. All we have to find here is cosine theta, and we know that cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So a is, we just found root 6 over 3. So let's put that down here. So negative square root of 1 plus cosine is a over 3, that means root 6 over 3, that's on the top, all over 2. Okay, now we need to combine these two fractions, and whenever we deal with fractions we have to make common denominator. So 3, 1 is 1 over 1, so we multiply 1 by 3 over 3, and we get negative square root of this 2 is already on the bottom, On the top 3 common denominator, 3 times 1 3 plus root 6. 3 and root 6 are unlike terms, so we cannot add or subtract. We have to write both. 3 plus root 6, and 6 does not have a perfect square factor, so this is it. Now we need to simplify this complex fraction, negative outside root of this, skip, change this to division, and flip. Flip means 2 is in fact 2 over 1, and when we change this into multiplication and flip, this becomes 1/2. So this on the top, 3 plus root 6 over 3 times division into multiplication 1/2. So 1/2, so 2 times 3 6. And we can't do any simplification, so we may leave here. This is it. This is final. Done.